Hello and welcome. It's just past 9 p.m. IST on the 10th of May, and a lot has been happening in the Middle East, especially when you factor in what's happening with Israel and Palestine over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours. We will be taking a brief look at what's happening exactly in Israel and what are the consequences and ramifications of what's happening, what are the facts of the case, and what is to be expected in the days to follow. Hello and welcome to StudyIQ's special live session, a brief short session on the Israel-Palestine crisis that is developing in the Northeast, in the Middle East. My name is Bhuvan Apoorva and you are with StudyIQ. Now jumping straight into the topic for the day, as you must have noticed or you must have observed by now, the Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen was in New Delhi, and he had to cut short his visit all of a sudden. Now, for those of you who follow global diplomacy and how these events function, well, for a visiting foreign dignitary to cut short their visit is often attributed to some crisis that has developed at home. And the crisis that has developed in Israel over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours, well, Israeli warplanes have struck Gaza to take out commanders of the militant Islamic Jihad group. And this is expected to usher in a next wave of Israeli-Palestine conflict. A lot is expected in terms of the situation, whether it will exaggerate or what's going to happen. Well, all the questions are out in the open, but we will look to discuss the facts of the matter and what we know so far. Obviously, it's a developing story. However, we will look to understand the basics, the facts of the case, insofar as understanding from the current affairs perspective is concerned. Moving forward, so what has happened exactly? This is what we know so far. Israel has launched a surgical strike of its own called Operation Shield and Arrow in response to a barrage of 100 rockets that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the PIJ, in Gaza had launched at southern Israel in the last 7 days. Now, for those of you who are listening to this term for the first time, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, well, obviously we have known terms in the Middle East when it comes to, say, Hamas or Hezbollah. However, PIJ is not a new body. It's not a new organization. It has been in existence since 1981, an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, obviously, this is not a political organization. This is a terrorist organization. This does not believe in the two-state solution. This does not believe in talking to Israel, which is why it has been designated as a terrorist organization, not just by Israel and America, but by the different allies of these two countries across the world. Now, Israel claims to have eliminated 3 PIJ commanders in a pre-dawn aerial strike in which there have been collateral damages. We know that at least 10 civilians have been killed, which includes 4 women and 4 children. Obviously, the surgical strike in a densely populated area such as Gaza, there were going to be civilian collateral, civilian casualties, and this has happened. However, what is to be noted here? The emergence of PIJ. The comparison of PIJ and Hamas. What is the different connotations? We'll try and explore in this short live stream. Now, in the past, dear viewers, Palestinian militant group in Gaza have retaliated for such targeted attacks. This has happened in the past, and Israel expects it to happen again. In anticipation of Palestinian rocket attacks, the Israeli military and Israeli administration has asked its citizens to take refuge, to seek cover, and to be in safe grounds. Now, for those of you again who are uninitiated in this topic, well, Gaza and West Bank are the two disputed territories in Israel that have been under control of Israel since 1967, the 6-day war that was fought to gain control of these two areas and where Israel eventually prevailed. Now, the Israel administration has asked all of its citizens. The closure of schools have been ordered, beaches and highways in cities and towns in southern Israel have been limited, and people are being forbidden to move around in large numbers. Public gatherings have been banned in Israel this evening. Obviously, a dynamic, evolving, organic situation that's happening in the Middle East as Israel looks to combat the aggression of the PIJ, and the PIJ obviously claims to have been on the wrong side of the aggression and the self-defense mechanism by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. Now, Israel has obviously quickly taken steps to safeguard its own security. Iron Dome has been employed across the country. Iron Dome batteries have in fact been positioned in the fields, and so you have the basic information about Iron Dome that you ought to know, students. Firstly, it was constructed by Rafale defense systems, and it is capable of intercepting short-range rockets and artillery, which is why India expressed a lot of desire in the Iron Dome. It was eventually suggested that a joint venture with DRDO, being the focus body from in the Indian side, would probably explore solutions in developing Iron Dome for India is concerned. Again, India faces the same threats that Israel faces in terms of vulnerability from short-range military attacks, rocket attacks, and armored attacks, artillery attacks, which is why India is also looking to invest in buying and developing its own version of the Iron Dome. Moving forward, now what is the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and why is it on Israel's hit list? Well, it is the second largest Palestinian armed group in Gaza. Obviously, Gaza is an area which is surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea on one side. You have Egypt on the other side, the Sinai Peninsula, as it is often called. So you have the PIJ, which is the second largest Palestinian armed group in Gaza. It has been eclipsed by Hamas so far. However, please understand that these two organizations, the PIJ and Hamas, are both backed by Iran. Like I informed you, the PIJ was formed in the 1980s to fight the Israeli occupation, and it does maintain a presence in Gaza and the Israeli-occupied West Bank. So, which is the country that is behind all of this? Well, it is claimed that Iran is the country that funds these two organizations with not just with money, but also with resources, with weapons and manpower. Like I told you, Israel and the United States and her allies all have designated PIJ as a terrorist organization. These are the facts of the case that we know so far. Moving on. Now the difference between PIJ and Hamas. Two organizations that operate out of the same area have a common enemy insofar as Israel is concerned. So what's the difference between the two? Well, Hamas and Islamic Jihad are often united and they have a common enemy, that's Israel. However, what is important is that Hamas and the PIJ often do not see eye to eye and agree on many things. Okay? One thing that has been concerning for Israel is what happens if these two join forces. Well, Israel has made its intention very clear. It has said that right now the PIJ is on its hit list. If Hamas were to dare help the PIJ in retaliating against Israel, Israel has made it very clear that Hamas people will also be on the hit list and will be neutralized and taken down. But at times, again, like I told you, it is a tense relationship between these two organizations, Hamas and PIJ. Especially because Hamas exerts pressure on Islamic Jihad to stop attacks or retaliation against Israel. Again, this is a developing story. However, what we do know so far at this moment is that Operation Revenge of the Free has been launched by the Palestinian side. You have a unified alliance that is retaliating against Israel. Again, no confirmation or denial whether Hamas is indeed supporting the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in this particular war, in this particular crisis that's developing in the north, in the Middle East, especially against Israel. So a unified resistance has been reported as of now. So dear viewers, now the question so arises, will Hamas sit on the fence or will it join the PIJ in mounting a unified alliance against Israel? Israel again on its part has made its intentions very clear that its security is paramount and that it will annihilate and neutralize any such entity that poses a threat not just to the state of Israel but also to the people of Israel. This is the Israeli ultimatum that has been issued by the highest levels of the government over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours to the two organizations. Now please understand that this is not something that has developed overnight. So Israel has been under attack from the Palestinian side. Friction has existed insofar as Israel and Palestine is concerned. 3 days of fierce cross-border attacks has happened previously between Israel and the Islamic Jihad in 2022. You eventually had nations coming in and mediating peace deal between these two entities. So you had an Egyptian-led mediation. Thereafter, the hostilities ceased. But thereafter, once again, in 2023, you have had this conflagration come up. Now, why has that happened? Well, again, just in the year 2023, Israel has neutralized 100 plus individuals who have been involved in aggression against the state of Israel, especially from Gaza Strip. So, where did it all begin? Where is the genesis of this whole issue? Well, the Israeli military began the hostilities when it assassinated a leader of Islamic Jihad with missile strikes in a preemptive strike. Thereafter, the cycle of violence starts. The Islamic Jihad responded with about 1,100 rocket and mortar shells towards Israeli territory, the military has confirmed, which is why the deployment of the Iron Dome battery assumes significance in this context. Thereafter, the most recent breaking news that we are developing and following at this hour is that the United Nations Security Council has called for an emergency meeting to discuss the recent developments that are happening vis-a-vis Israel and Palestine. You have had 4 such meetings that have already taken place this year, and they are going to be discussing the idea of Operation Shield and Arrow. Now, what is to be expected out of this meeting, what is going to be the results of this meeting is a question that can only be answered in the future. However, what one thing that you all can completely understand and empathize with is that it is a priority area for the UNSC. The area is of immense significance, not just for regional stability and peace, but also for global stability and peace, which is why the UNSC is acting with such alacrity. Now, this is the Palestinian representative to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, who says that we condemn this murderous aggression against the Palestinian people and call for immediate action to hold responsible the criminal perpetrators. Clearly, he's got a grievance, he's airing it out. The United Nations must act is what his council is asking for. On the other hand, the Israeli representative to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, he has said that the UNSC should condemn the indiscriminate rocket attacks on Israeli civilians launched from Gaza and to support Israel in a legitimate right of self-defense. Eventually, this whole conversation becomes a conversation centered around self-defense versus self-determination. Which side of the scale are you tilting towards? On that note, this is a wrap in this special short live stream discussing the happenings that have been taking place over the course of the last 48 hours in the Middle East. This is Bhuvan Apoorva explaining to you Israel's rocket and shield operation. Thanks for watching.